So I started to make this db.json file because I don't really want to think about the backend, but it is kind of important to understand where the backend is. Because originally, with this users object, I think I had something like use or name and then alias was the first thing that I started with because I didn't really want to make it difficult to change this in the future. I wanted to make it easy for me to find and replace the stuff that I'm changing. But that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense because I know that my data is structured differently. If we look at the GraphQL file, I don't have the same user, or I don't have that same structure. And it wouldn't necessarily be easy for me to quickly pivot into this structure if I didn't think about it from the beginning. So let's look at what users means. User. I do star. I'm used to using WebStorm. I'm using VS Code right now because I have WebStorm open in a different window. I don't really want to deal with switching back and forth between them as I'm recording and actually coding. So user has ID, username, name, and then a list of concepts. So that's roughly what we should have for the users object. And so I'm going to change that back. The posts entity type that I have in this db.json file doesn't actually exist in the schema, and there isn't necessarily an easy analog except for maybe concepts, which is kind of like a catch-all. So I'm going to look at what that has. Whoops. Concept. Event, concept. Title, source, content type, published, and concept tags. So content type is probably what I'm going to use to identify this as a post. So instead of posts, this might be concepts, just in the intermediate layer. I'm probably going to need to use the adapter pattern in that situation. And the database is roughly similar. Let's see if there's anything helpful. Are we missing anything? Title, source, content type, published. Title, category, content type, published. Category. That's not represented in the front-end code base or GraphQL. Parent concepts and child concepts. Let's see if that has anything. Concept, concept tags. So we have this concept, primary, secondary, relationship, concept list. That's not tremendously, okay, so that's fine. So we have the ability via GraphQL to relate one concept to another, where there's a primary concept and then something that relates to it as a secondary concept. And then we have a name for that relationship, which is a string. Eventually, that's probably going to be replaced with an ID because we don't necessarily want to have too many relationship types in this code base. Let's see, concept. Can I command click? Primary concept, secondary concept, relationship. Okay, so that actually is something that we can do. So we're allowed to have entities that are related to other entities. We can have, for example, in this comment section, which is going to be a concept with a content type of comment. We have a post ID. So this is what we're going to do. Posts and comments are concepts, and those are going to have respective content types of post and comment. A comment can relate to a post in that a post is the maybe comment is the primary entity type and a post is the secondary entity type, and the relationship is going to be comment on post, for example, or maybe post comment post, comment post, I think is what I'm going to call it. Parent comment ID, and it can also relate to other comments. So maybe that relationship type is parent comment. So we're going to have relationship of comment post and parent comment, and that's going to be representative of the relationship on the concept type returned by GraphQL, and in the schema file, it's going to be represented by the concept model. You can see that we're using a relational database, in this instance, with Prisma. Okay, so that actually kind of makes sense. Active user, we have a user entity type represented in GraphQL. Can I command click? Why can't I command click that? That's strange. And that has an ID, which is a string, so that's cool. And I feel like that's all we're going to do for now. So for the first step, I'm going to want to, let's see, create pages for all of these so I can add users and delete users. Actually, the first thing that I want to do is only fetch this data. That's the first thing that I want to do across all of the sites. Then I'm going to go back through and add the rest of the operations. So out of the CRUD operations, create, read, update, delete, I'm only going to focus on reading. Then I might think about creation. Then I might think about deletion. Then I might think about updating, which if we look into the HTTP requests, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but with updating, I'm going to need to think about putting and posting. Yeah, I think that's it. Cool.